Hey everyone, what up? Matt Kaiser here. With Visions of Mana just right around the corner, being the brand new mainline Mana game in over 15 years, I thought it was a good idea to reminisce about the franchise from its 33-year long history all the way from the past and to where it rose and then fell and all the way up to its new resurgence. And to help, I got some really good content creator friends of mine to talk about each entry. But before we begin, if you like what you're seeing here, then by all means, like the video, click that subscribe button if you're new, and hit that bell notification icon if you want more of my content from yours truly. Not only that, but I'm also currently in the middle of playing Persona 5 Royal, and hopefully before this year ends, I'll be able to deliver my long-awaited 750 subscriber special of Persona 5 Royal. So please do look forward to that as you can. With that said, sit back, relax, grab some food and drinks as we take you to a grand adventure with the Mana Series Retrospective.
What? An excuse to talk about Mana? I'm game. First of all, thanks so much Mad Kaiser for inviting me to this Mana collab. Lucky for you, Mana is one of my favorite series of all time. So I'm to talk about the first Seiken Densetsu, am I? Well, let's take a look at the game that started it all. So Seiken Densetsu was localized as Final Fantasy Adventure in North America, and if you are in Europe, you may know it as Mystic Quest. So No, not that Mystic Quest. Go away, nobody loves you. This Mystic Quest. That's better. So where was I? So Final Fantasy Adventure is where the series began, and what an adventure it was. Final Fantasy Adventure was released in Japan on June 28, 1991, in North America in November of 1991, and in Europe in 1993. Honestly, I couldn't find exact dates for North America and Europe, despite scouring the internet. I'm sitting here thinking, what should I call this game? It has 3 different names, and I'm not sure what it should be referred to as. Well, you know what, just to make things simple, let's go with Seiken Densetsu. Anyways, as the original Mana title, Seiken Densetsu actually began as a Final Fantasy spin-off. Even in Japan, the full name is Seiken Densetsu Final Fantasy Gaiden. This is actually quite clear if you play the game. There are chocobos, there's a Moogle status effect, and it has other small references to Final Fantasy, such as healing items being called ethers and potions. I remember when I played this game, it was in 2000, I had just tried Final Fantasy VIII, and I had to return it to a friend that lent it to me, but he said I could try Final Fantasy Adventure. I was very surprised, and instantly called it a Zelda wannabe. I know now that Seiken Densetsu is so much more, but I was a young kid. I loved Link to the Past, so honestly, can you blame me? Seiken Densetsu is kind of simple. You get to run around, cut little bunnies with your sword, cut through bushes, and get different styles of weapons as well as magic. And you get new partners as you progress through the game. As you play it, you realize that this isn't Final Fantasy. This is so much more. This may have started off as a Final Fantasy spin-off, but little did we know it was going to spawn a whole series that the world would come to love as one of the greatest action RPGs of all time. Seiken Densetsu also spawned 2 different games, one a reimagining and one a remake. Sword of Mana, or Shinyaku Seiken Densetsu, was a reimagining of Seiken Densetsu for the Game Boy Advance released in 2003. It took aspects of Legend of Mana, such as weapon creation and different weapon types, as well as the Lil Cactus. I wonder if he's my cousin. Probably my cousin twice removed. Anyways, Sword of Mana feels like a true Mana title and offered quite a bit more story, but it feels more like an original game than a remake of the original Seiken Densetsu. Next, we have Adventures of Mana, released for the PlayStation Vita, iOS, and Android in 2016. Adventures of Mana was a more faithful remake of the original Seiken Densetsu. It was essentially an upscale with the same gameplay style, but converted to a 3D graphical style. All 3 versions of the game are worth experiencing, as Seiken Densetsu is such a beautiful game and a wonderful start to the glorious Mana series that would continue for decades to come. Anyways, thanks so much Kaiser for having me on to talk about Mana. And hey, if y'all love JRPGs, make sure to pop on over to my channel, Shinky JRPGs, to listen to a crazy cactus nerd out about all kinds of them. And as always, everyone, have a wonderful day.
What's up, gamers? This is NGG here. I want to thank Matt Kaiser for having me on his channel, and I'm here to talk about one of my favorite series, and specifically one of my favorite games in that series, which is Secret of Mana. And Secret of Mana released in 1993 for the Super Nintendo, and we had a PlayStation port in 2017 with a remake, which with a lot of people didn't like the voice acting. I haven't had a chance to play that port, but I did also pick up the Switch version that came in the collection that was released in 2019. There was a phone port. I don't do mobile ports, but there was one that was released in 2009. It came out in a bad state, and I believe it was fixed again in 2010 with all the bugs being fixed out and glitches. So I want to talk to you guys about this game and my experiences with it. So this is not my original copy. My original copy, the copy I played, was my mom's copy. As a teenager, I went and picked up this copy, and as an adult, I picked up this copy with the full collection, and it was one of my favorite games growing up. Let me talk about the story, and then I'll get into what my personal experiences with The Secret of Mana was. So the plot of the story is like these group of little kids come onto this waterfall, and they're not supposed to be there. The elder of the town has told them you can't be playing in that area, and unfortunately you as the protagonist fall in the waterfall, and your friends just leave you there because they don't want to get in trouble, and they know they're not supposed to be there. And so the only way for you to get out of underneath the waterfall, because of the plants that are blocking your way, is to like pull this sword, and then like an Excalibur type sword. But you find out that this sword is like, the power is draining, and one of the guys in the town recognizes the sword, and he your town, because bad things start happening once you pull the sword out, like monsters start appearing, they kick you out, and you meet up with this guy who is like, hey, that sword needs to go back to its place, but it needs to be like recharged with like mana power. And so you're going throughout the world, going throughout the mana temples to try to recharge this mana sword. The game is an action RPG, which was weird for its time because most games were turn-based RPGs, but this was an action RPG. And if you had like the multi-tap controller extension, you could play up to 3 players on this Secret of Mana game, which was very unusual. So you and 2 others could play and hit, and you didn't have to worry about the AI, because the AI is not the best. Sometimes the AI gets stuck behind things and you can't move. So it was always fun. My experience was playing with my sister. It has a wheel system that will pause the game when you're picking your stuff. So it is like it'll hold the game when you're picking your magic or changing your stuff. But other than that, it's an action RPG. I played this growing up with my sister. This is one of the experiences. One of my first experiencing playing an RPG with my sibling. And we went through all the stories with all the characters. I know it was a 3-player game, and I had 2 siblings, but I don't think my brother was ever interested in it. But my sister would play games with me, and we would play this game all the time, to the point where we beat this game, and it was so fun when we finally beat the game. We were a lot younger back then, obviously, so no strategy guides existed. So when you beat a game back then, it was amazing. But I want to thank Matt Kaiser again for having me on to talk about my personal experience with the Secret of Mana series, and thank you guys for watching.
Hello there everybody, my name is Joesephyr, and I'm here to talk to you today about Trials of Mana. Now, Trials of Mana was originally known as Seiken Densetsu 3, released originally on the Super Nintendo back in 1995. However, due to localization issues, it was actually only ever released in Japan, and we never saw Trials of Mana as it became known until the Collection of Mana was released much later in 2019. And then of course we saw the full 3D remake of Trials of Mana come around in 2020, which is the version that I'm very well accustomed to. I have a special affinity for Trials of Mana in particular because it was released during the COVID pandemic and it was a game I played extensively during the lockdown, so it's always going to have a special place in my heart from that point onwards. But not only that, I think Trials of Mana is special because of the fact that it introduces the job system, the ability to choose multiple different characters from a selection of 6, but you're only allowed to choose 3, which encourages you to then go through the game and play it again repeatedly so that you experience the story of each of these 6 characters. My personal favourites were Duran the Warrior, Hawkeye the Thief, and Kevin the Beastman, and you may find that all of the other characters are more to your liking, but that's part of the beauty of it. There's a lot of individuality present in Trials of Mana, and that's even more prevalent with the job system. As you progress through the game, you get additional jobs and the ability to go down a job tree, as it were, by selecting either a light or dark path. And once you've chosen one, you're not really able to go back and choose another, which gives you a sense of permanence and even more reason to go back and enjoy the game multiple times. I also really enjoy Trials of Mana simply because it isn't afraid to just be a video game. I really enjoy JRPGs that don't take themselves super seriously, and Trials of Mana has a pretty sort of nonchalant story as compared to many JRPGs of the modern era that play like visual novels, and it has an action RPG element to it that just feels fresh but still kind of reminiscent of days past, being originated on the Super Nintendo. And it's just a fun game to play. So if you've never played Trials of Mana before, I very much encourage you to do so, because it's a game that once you get your hooks into, you'll want to be coming back to it again and again and again.
What up, guys? It is me, MechaOtakuGamer here, and thank you, Mad Kaiser, for having me on this little project so I could talk about Legend of Mana, which is a 1999 action role-playing game developed and published by Square, now known as Square Enix, for the original PlayStation. It was the 4th game released in the Mana series following 1995's Trials of Mana, or Seiken Densetsu 3, as Trials of Mana was not released originally in the West, but Legend of Mana was released in the West on the PS1, and it is set in a high fantasy universe, and the game follows an unnamed hero as they restore the land of Fa-Diel by creating the world around them and completing a number of interrelated quests in order to restore the Tree of Mana. While incorporating action role-playing elements from prior games in the series, such as the real-time battles, Legend of Mana has its own distinct style of gameplay. Most notably, it gives the player the ability to shape the world's structure through the landmate system, generating regions and quests in a non-linear gameplay system rather than having a strong main plotline. Legend of Mana was directed by series creator Koichi Ishii, designed by Akihiko Matsui, and produced by veteran Square director and producer Akitoshi Kawazu. The game had high sales, selling 400,000 copies in its first week of release and 700,000 by the end of 1999. Now that is pretty crazy. And as for my experience with Legend of Mana, it's one of the games that I am currently playing through, and I really like the art style in the game. It's what drew me to really wanting to get into Legend of Mana, and I like the whole concept of how this is kind of like a choose-your-own-adventure style action RPG, and I really love action RPGs, and I'm trying to get into the Mana series, and this is the first Mana game that I actually played. I haven't really played much of the other ones. I've played a little bit of Secret of Mana and Trials, and God forbid, Dawn of Mana. That's a whole another story. But Legend of Mana, I ended up really falling in love with the art style, and I can't wait to play more of Legend of Mana, as like I said, that art style is just very beautiful. I love the action combat in this game, and I also really enjoy the music. The soundtrack was done by none other than Yoko Shimomura, also known for the Kingdom Hearts series. And she did a fantastic job with the OST in Legend of Mana. And if you really want to play Legend of Mana, luckily it was remastered for the PlayStation 4 and Nintendo Switch within the last 5 years. The gameplay that you see here is from the PS4 version, even though I originally have I technically have the PS1 version, but the PS4 does enhance the way that it looks just a little bit better. But for a PS1 game, it still pretty much holds up, and I absolutely love this game. It is, even though I haven't beaten it, I still just really enjoy playing it whenever I do. And that is all I'm going to say on Legend of Mana. And thank you again, Mad Kaiser, for having me in on this project. And if you want to check out some of my other videos, my channel, MechaOtakuGamer, is all about JRPGs and game collecting and all that. And hope to see you guys on my channel. This is MechaOtakuGamer signing out. Peace!
After Trials of Mana's release, the series was a little bit dormant until the early 2000s. After Sword of Mana just came out, Koichi Ishii and the team decided to create on what will be known as the World of Mana compilation, a new series that would revitalize the brand, and attempt to take the series into a new direction, with a couple of spin-offs like Children of Mana for 2006, Heroes of Mana for 2007, with both of them being released for Nintendo DS, the former of which was basically like a dungeon crawler, and the latter was more of a real-time strategy game. Among also Friends of Mana, which was an online mobile game that was at the time basically exclusive to Japan back in 2006 and lasted all the way up to 2011. Then of course you had the aforementioned Adventures of Mana remake, and also even a manga called Princess of Mana. And of course, I cannot forget, oh boy do I want to forget, the next mainline Mana game, with Seiken Densetsu 4, aka Dawn of Mana. And, hoo boy. Now this game was the first Mana game to be truly in full 3D, with using the Havoc engine that was previously used for the critically acclaimed Half-Life 2. This game would release for the PlayStation 2 for December 21, 2006 in Japan, and then May 22nd, 2007 for, North America. Dawn of Mana both added some new things, though sadly made some departures for the series, as this game was intentionally on design meant to be set as the first game of the series, chronologically, even taking 10 years before Children of Mana. Even though realistically, the Mana games in the past have been in separate universes, like its once parent/sister with Final Fantasy, and that statement, didn't age well, much like the plot twist of Halloween 2. A large portion of this game was also even composed by longtime series composer Kenji Ito, and even had some boss themes composed by Tsuyoshi Sekito, and even some of the battle music was even composed by, believe it or not, Final Fantasy XIV and 16 main composer Masayoshi Soken. And in terms of gameplay, this is where the contention started to begin, as it pretty much traded the whole role-playing elements and went for a more action-adventure single-player experience, almost akin to a Kingdom Hearts title, as you mainly play as protagonist Keldrick. This combat was dubbed as the Mono System, and involved things like being able to throw down items and objects towards enemies using Keldy's whip that he can crack. Crack that whip.
Crack that whip. Licorice whip.
And hitting them causes those enemies to be in what's called a panic state, which gives you an advantage before battle. Though if you ask me, if I got something hit by like say a can, I would be enraged. Hitting an enemy would result in a counter appearing over their head, which induces a thing called panic status. And in this status, enemies are now more vulnerable and does induce more damage to them. And if the counter raises beyond 99, the enemy will be full panic to a point that even a gold crown will replace the numerical counter. Defeating enemies in this state will yield a much better medal that will grant you even stat boosting. Things as well as using equipment or even crafting items are not found or present in Dawn of Mana. Items are not even available for stocking purposes and are used immediately upon grabbing them. The shop feature, which you see in past Mana games, are only limited to non-battle items such as music tracks and movie clips. Now the only type of tools that Keldy can equip are ribbons and emblems, which can enhance Keldy's combat performance, and he can gain the use of special arrows blessed by the Mana Spirits, found in, well, the game emblems, which are the only equipment that Keldy can use, and can be gained through various means. The latter itself can be unlocked by meeting grading requirements in the game, or even things like say, being bought at the Challenge Arena shop using the monetary value of Lucra, or even beating optional or rare enemies. However, the game is also infamous for what I have to call the most oddest decision when it comes to even general game design, and that is your stats, level, and equipment are completely reset to absolutely nothing, and at the level you are at when you beat a chapter. So that means all the stat and progress you made through that one chapter is completely reduced to nothing at the next chapter. So in turn, you get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir. Oh yeah, and did I also mention that there's also chapters in this game? But yeah, suffice to say that trading off RPG elements for a more hack and slash approach and having the dumbest decision to reset your stats and equipment every time you beat a chapter surely didn't sit well with a majority of this game. As a result, Dawn of Mana was met with a very lukewarm reception from both fans and critics, with many even rating it as possibly the worst mainline Mana game, revolving around its rather contentious gameplay, designs, and even sacrifice of RPG elements, with the only thing that they only gave it praise to would have to be the visuals at the time. This would score a 57 on Metacritic, and sales-wise, it only sold around about over 340,000 units around 2008. Man, between this and the Secret of Mana remake, it's funny on how this franchise has a more rough transition to 3D than say something like Sonic. After that, and the world of Mana series would come to wither, the series started to go back into its dormant state. Now while the series was still sleeping, around the 2010s, Square Enix decided to bring two more Mana spin-offs, one of which being Circle of Mana for March 5th, 2013, and Rise of Mana for 2014, both of which were for mobile devices, though the latter of which did come to the Vita in 2015. The former, which is Circle of Mana, was a card-based role-playing game, and it brought characters and items from previous Mana titles, such as Secret of Mana all the way up to even Heroes of Mana, though sadly it shut down on 2015. As for the latter, which is Rise of Mana, it was an action RPG that used a similar battle system to prior Mana titles, while still having a free-to-play model that was more in common with mobile titles, though sadly that lasted all the way up to 2016. And outside of that, during the mid-near 2020s, we did have a slew of ports and remakes, with, as mentioned from Nintendo Gamer Gal, we did have, of course, the Secret of Mana remake in 2018 for PlayStation 4, PS Vita, and PC. And then around in 2019, we had the Collection of Mana for the Nintendo Switch, which had the 3 original Mana games, with having some neat features like quick save, quick load, screen settings, and a music player. And then in 2020, we, of course, had the Trials of Mana remake for PlayStation 4, Switch, and PC, which of course Joesephyr already mentioned. And then in 2021, we had the remaster of Legend of Mana, which MechaOtakuGamer already mentioned. Yes, I am referencing a lot of what already has been said throughout this whole retrospective from my collaborators, but I just wanted to do a recap to make sure you're following along.
Everybody got that?
Outside of all of that, we did have a brand new Mana game in 2022, and was released for worldwide no less, and that was Echoes of Mana, and it is, you guessed it, another mobile game, which one being just nothing more but another free-to-play action RPG that was revealed at the Mana's 30th anniversary in 2022. And just last year, Square Enix and the developer known as Flyer closed sales of paid content on February 13th, 2023, in preparation for its end of service on May 15th, 2023. Man, with so many mobile games just coming up and shutting down, it just makes me feel sad. Now I know what the Tale series is like. Plus, with that, the Mana series was at a period where it really didn't have anything at this point. And while there were reports that there will be like a new Mana console game, those reports were slowly put into question, as in August 6, 2023, Square Enix did do an initial report that they would actually focus on less mid-sized games and focus more on AAA. And while the Mana series has been going on for a while now, and recently made a success with the Trials of Mana remake, actually for once even succeeding Square Enix's expectations in 2021, with selling over 1 million units, and that alone is actually refreshing, given how many times we've heard many games just not live up to those expectations. My condolences, Neo-Twerry. But bear in mind that the Mana series isn't exactly on the same caliber as Final Fantasy in terms of scope and budget. Though, a glimmer of hope did happen in December 7, 2023, where a trademark was placed from Square Enix and was called Visions of Mana, and it just so happened to be on that same day that the Game Awards was present. That same Game Awards where was shown controversy of prioritizing celebrities over game devs no less, especially when it comes to speeches, with the infamous wrap it up.
Yikes.
But putting all of that aside, it does seem suspicious for a recent trademark to come out on the exact same day as one of the biggest gaming events out there. However, the Game Awards began, and around the 1 hour and 24 minutes mark, a miracle happened.
Tonight we're showing you lots of new worlds, but now it's time to return to a world we haven't seen in quite some time.
This announcement was truly something special, with the revealed trailer of a game known as Visions of Mana, a brand new mainline console game in over 15 years, with this one sporting rather luscious and beautiful visuals that are just an upgrade over even the Trials of Mana remake, to the addition of things like even aerial combat and a rather unique usage of the elements. And ever since then, we've got lots of more info, from it being developed by Ogre Studios, to even having the core Mana team collaborating for this one, including staff like the Mana series producer Masaru Oyamada, as well as artist and creator of the series itself, Koichi Ishii, as well as also even having Hiroki Kikuta returning to compose the soundtrack alongside the likes of Tsuyoshi Sekito and even Ryo Yamazaki, with the director of this game being done by Ryosuke Yoshida, out of, well, Devil May Cry 5 fame, and Kenji Ozawa. This game would be in a way both an evolution and an amalgamation of the series, and what makes a Mana game, well, a Mana game. Among that, it would also serve as a brand new fresh start, even trading away the whole numbering system, and instead of being called Seiken Densetsu 5, it would have been known as Seiken Densetsu Visions of Mana. This game would sport an evolved updated combat system with lots of RPG elements, featuring now full-on aerial combat, as well as elemental vessels being used for both combat and exploration, as well as many staples, like things like the return of the ring menu, as well as the class systems from the Trials of Mana, as well as the Vuskav and the Flame, as well as also having some brand new unique features, like the aforementioned elemental vessels, the emphasis on aerial combat, as well as the new addition of the pickles, including also fast travel and even a semi-open world. Currently so far, the previews and impressions for this game, currently at the time of this video by the way, have been very so positive so far, with this game set out to release for PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, and PC via Steam this August 29th. And here we are, right where we're standing, with a brand new Mana game just coming out real soon with Visions of Mana. One could hope on how well this game does, and if it does so well, we could see brand new mainline new original Mana games like this in the future, even better. But alas, there we have it. Thank you guys so much for sticking by this retrospective, and whether you're a veteran of the series looking for like say a refresh, or even a newcomer who wants to know more about this franchise, I do hope that you guys enjoyed this from both me and my friends. Special thanks to the wonderful people I got to collab with, and please check out their content. I'll leave their links in the description down below. With that said, let me know down in the comments if you guys played a Mana game or are completely new to the series, with Visions being your first Mana game. Until then, Mad Kaiser out.